Well, hello and welcome everybody to today's lecture. Today we're going to look at an introduction to SWOT analysis, and what I want to achieve during this period are the following objectives. I want you to be able to understand what the SWOT acronym means. I want you to be able to apply the SWOT analysis as a tool in your management practice. I want you to be able to analyze the firm's environment, that is to say the environment within which they work, and also to evaluate the usefulness to SWOT to you as a manager. As we go through the lecture, this will be the agenda that we will follow. First of all, we'll look at what SWOT analysis is. Then we'll look at the aims of SWOT. We'll move on to look at how to conduct a SWOT analysis, and then we will end up by evaluating the pros and cons of the SWOT analysis that you are going to do. So starting off then, what do we mean by SWOT? What is this mysterious word? It stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Quite simply, it's a four-letter acronym for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. What is then the SWOT analysis made up of? First of all, it's a technique that was credited to academics at the Stanford University in the 1960s and 1970s. They created a planning tool that is used to understand any project or business and to give you more information by providing a framework for organizing data on an internal and external environmental basis. The technique moves from everyday strategies to a fresh perspective, and it has the advantage of being relatively easy to use, and it's become a staple of strategic analysis across many industries. What are the strengths then? We can assume strengths to be characteristics of a business that give it an advantage over others in the industry. Positive, tangible and intangible attributes that are internal to the organization. That's very important. These are the attributes that are internal to the organization. And together they provide beneficial capabilities for an organization. They deliver the competencies, resources, goodwill and brand loyalty that a company needs in order to succeed. Examples of strengths then are abundant financial resources, a well-known brand name and economies of scale. Moving on then to what we might consider weaknesses. Weaknesses are characteristics that place the firm at a disadvantage relative to the others in its industry. They are detracting from the ability to attain the core goal and to influence its growth. Therefore, they are bad. They must be eliminated. They are factors which do not meet the required standards of the firm or of the industry. And examples of weaknesses are limited financial resources, weak spending by the company on R&D, and a narrow product line. Moving on then to a consideration of opportunities. These are chances that the company has to make greater profits in the environment within which it works. These are external attractive factors that help the organization to exist and to develop. Opportunities arise when an organization can take benefit of conditions in its environment and so become more profitable. Organizations, however, need to be careful and to recognize that the opportunities that arise need to be grasped. You can't delay whenever an opportunity shows itself. Examples of opportunities might be circumstances under which markets are growing rapidly, when rival firms are complacent and aren't competing as hard as they might be, or when customers' needs and tastes are changing and we can go in there and deliver exactly what the consumers are wanting. Finally, let's look at threats. Threats are external elements to the firm that could cause trouble for the business, and they are beyond the organization's control. They arise when conditions in external environmental circumstances jeopardize profitability. So things that might stop us in our tracks and stop us from making the profit that we seek. Threats compound the vulnerability of the organization when they relate to weaknesses. So threats and weaknesses often come together and they threaten the stability and survival of the company. Examples of threats might be the entry of foreign competitors into the market, the introduction of new substitute product that consumers can use instead of our own. It might also be a question of the product life cycle that we have been occupying beginning to decay and decline so that we have to innovate in order to survive. So having looked at what we mean by strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats, let's move on now then to a consideration of the aims of a SWOT analysis before moving on to the rest of the presentation. So the aim of the SWOT analysis is firstly to bring a clearer common purpose and understanding of factors for success. We need to understand what we have to do in order to be successful. Secondly, SWOT helps us to organize the important factors that are linked to success or failure of the business in the outside world. Thirdly, it helps us to analyze issues that have led to failure in the past. If we understand the past, then we'll make sure that we don't make those mistakes again. And fourthly, SWOT helps us to provide a linearity to our decision making. It helps us present complex ideas in a systematic way, and so is helping us to get organized in what we do. So now, having looked then at what SWOT is, having looked at the aims of SWOT analysis, let's now look at how we might conduct the SWOT analysis before going on to the final part of the presentation. The three-step process for making a SWOT analysis consists of firstly, analysing the internal and external environment, moving on then to perform the SWOT analysis and documenting it, before then going on to prepare an action plan and implementing those actions. As we look at the situational analysis of the organization in step 1, we want to look at an internal analysis of the company. This will focus on its weaknesses, and we know what those are because we've talked about them a few moments ago. We also want to focus on the company's strengths. Together then, an analysis of the weaknesses and strengths gives us an insight into the internal situation of the company. We then go on to look at the external aspects of the organization. What opportunities are waiting for us out there to go and make a profit, but also what threats are stalking us which might stop us taking full advantage of those opportunities. So opportunities and threats allow us to analyze the external aspects of the firm. So strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats taken together give us insight into the overall environment of the company from an internal and external perspective. Moving on then from the first step, which we've satisfactorily completed, the second step requires us to actually perform the SWOT analysis and to document it before then moving on to the action plan and implementation. The first step in analysing and documenting the process is to select the contributors who have the expert opinions who can help us put together the data we need for a full SWOT analysis. We then give them the resources that they need and prepare exactly the kind of tasks we want them to do so that they then can go and explore the information that's out there and then come back with a detailed analysis. We then evaluate the ideas that those experts have provided us with. They have lists of information, we compile those lists, we sort through them, we group facts and ideas, and now we start playing with the information that we've begun to create from the SWOT. In the fourth step, we will actually then list the strengths, weaknesses and opportunities and threats as a result of the analysis that we've done before moving on to the fifth and final step where we carry forward the findings, making sure that we use the analysis in all subsequent planning. Importantly, we would also make sure that we update our SWOT analysis from time to time to make sure that we've got the most up-to-date information available for future plans and future strategy making. So having successfully completed the first step of the SWOT analysis, having successfully completed the second step of the SWOT analysis, we can now move on to the third step of preparing action plans for implementation. So once the analysis is completed, we want to mark each point as part of the action plan, firstly identifying things that we can do quite quickly, things that we can do soon, that we have the resources and capabilities to deal with now. We'd then look at things that we must research further, things that we have to get more information on before actually deciding how to handle them. And then we mark things that are in the future, things that we can come back to improve our performance later on in the future. But most importantly, we must identify things that we must do immediately. Things that are so urgent that we can't proceed with the rest of the analysis unless we have these things taken care of. So having now looked at what SWOT analysis is, having established the aims of SWOT, and having seen how to conduct a SWOT analysis, let's look at the pros and cons of the analysis and see what the advantages and disadvantages are for you, the manager. On the pro side of the argument, we can be quite clear that SWOT helps us set objectives for strategic planning. After all, that's why we're doing it. And it's a basis for assessing our core capabilities and competencies. Once we can see the opportunities, do we really have the skills within the organisation to use them to our maximum benefit? And of course, SWOT provides evidence and the cultural key to change. Once we understand what's going on around us, then we are much better able to deal with change in the environment. However, we must recognise that SWOT can be very, very subjective. It's only as good as the knowledge and skill of the experts who are actually making the analysis. And they may, for whatever reasons, oversimplify the situation. They may not fully understand what the company is facing. Also, the assumptions of the experts may be wrong, and this would be really a big, big problem. Also, one of the problems of SWOT is that it lacks a detailed structure, so that key elements may be overlooked and missed, and that would not be a good outcome. Well, it's time to test your knowledge and see what you have learnt from this short lecture. My first question to you then is, what is the second step of the three-step process of carrying out a SWOT analysis? Please fill out the gap to complete the sentence. Those of you who answered perform and analyse have been following the lecture and really have learnt something about SWOT. Good. My next question is, provide any 3 examples of opportunities for firms that SWOT analysis might identify. Any 3. Well, I would suggest that if you put down rapid market growth, rival firms that are complacent, a changing customer needs scenario, a general boom time in the economy, or industrial deregulation, then you have a very good idea of what opportunities a company can face and which SWOT can identify for you. Well done. Here are some references that I've used to put this short lecture together. I suggest you look them up, and if you do that, then you'll have even more background information on a very important tool of strategic analysis. So thank you very much for your attention. Now you're all experts on SWOT analysis, and I hope you've enjoyed this lecture as much as I have. Bye-bye.